All right, let's look at a couple more examples of graphing angles and degrees in standard position. Let's start with this negative 215 degrees. Okay, so I've already labeled this circle to kind of give us that reference for the unit circle, which is upcoming for where these angles are. So negative 215 degrees, if you look at what I've used for red here, right? Negative 90, negative 180, negative 270, negative 360, negative 215 degrees would fall somewhere over here in quadrant two, right? And again, quadrants become a big deal. So why don't I just go ahead and label these just so that we have that to refer to. If and when they ask those types of questions. So negative 215 degrees. We know that's going to be somewhere in here, right? Now, there's a couple of ways that we could talk about where to find this, okay? Clearly, it's beyond negative 180, okay? So if you want, you can take either one of these measurements, and this is going to sound pretty loose and ambiguous, okay? But this this is going to work no matter how you put it. If you use negative 215, okay, and which is quote unquote bigger than negative 180, if you subtract the negative 180, or if you, so in this case, you'd be adding 180, you get negative 45 degrees. What that means is this angle is 45 degrees beyond negative 180. It's 45 degrees away from the angle that I was doing the math with. So if you want to use that, this is what we call a reference angle, okay? And I'm going to do this in red just because. So this is what we call a reference angle. When we swing when we swing clockwise, right? These are our negative measurements. Here's negative 180. If I swing negative 45 degrees or 45 degrees beyond negative 180, that's where my negative 215 degree angle is. So again, this is what's referred to, and you're going to hear this come up throughout this unit. This is what's referred to as a reference angle, right? So this is a 45-degree reference angle, 45 degrees beyond negative 180. And you kind of, this is good. They might take my math degree away for this, but you kind of have to ignore the sign values, right? The positive and negative part of this. You've already recognized and notated that this is in quadrant two. Okay, so we know it's in here. If we use one of these axis angles, negative 180, okay, if we use that axis angle and we subtract it from this number and we get this, we know we're 45 degrees away from that. So we just extend 45 degrees beyond that, okay? If you wanted to use 270 and 215, okay, you could take negative 270 and subtract negative 215. You'd still get negative 45 degrees. Here's the tricky part. Yeah, that's 45 degrees away from 270 in this direction, but this angle is not a reference angle. Reference angles are only angles that are formed with the x-axis. So we would say that this is a 45-degree reference angle. It's in the same place as negative 215 degrees. Okay, let's go to 300. 300 is a positively measured angle. Okay, positively measured angles, let's go with blue here. Positively measured angles go counterclockwise. 300 is between 270 and 360, okay? And just by, doing the mental math, is 300 closer to 270 or 360? 300 is closer to 270, right? So we'll put it down here like so. And again, if you want to know how far away it is, okay, find, and this is again, when we're talking reference angles, find the angle that is on the x-axis. In this case, the closest angle on the x-axis to 300 is 360, and subtract 300, and you'd get 60 degrees, which means that this angle is 60 degrees away from 360. So our reference angle, we would say, is 60 degrees, right? You're like, well, why isn't this negative 60 degrees? Totally different story, but reference angles are always positive. Okay, so we're not measuring this angle down and saying, well, this is a negative 60-degree angle. No, it's a 300-degree angle. Okay, The reference angle, and I'll write this down because I've said it a bunch of times at this point. The reference angle is 60 degrees, okay? Always positive, right? Now, if I drew this blue line, and to confuse you even more, if I drew this blue line here and I said, what's the reference angle for this? You would say it's 60 degrees. But if I said, what's the measure of this angle? You would say, well, it's 300 or it's negative 60. Okay, so again, reference angles are always positive and they're always formed to the x-axis. But if we give the measurement of an angle, we can call it a positive measurement if we go counterclockwise. We can give it a negative measurement if we go clockwise. Okay, we'll do some more with this in radians here in a little bit.